It is fashionable to shoot down the Fiat Multipla, presented in 1996 as a concept, then in 1997 in its final version. Strange look redhead at all four corners, it nevertheless had many qualities. It also sought to remain worthy of its ancestor, the Fiat 600 Multipla, presented 40 years earlier in 1956. Aficionados of the Chrysler Voyager or the Renault Espace continue to argue over who invented the concept, while the solution lies in the 50s, in Turin, with this famous Fiat 600 Multipla that was revolutionary. And now, let's go back to the 50s, a very beautiful era. And at that time, Alfa Romeo and Lancia were still constantly trying to maintain their sporty or luxurious or both images. And Fiat is making a fortune by motorizing a post-war Italy still in reconstruction. And to do this, one model starts the job, the Fiat 600, a small saloon car launched in 1955, which will later be accompanied by the 500 in 1957. Well, small cars are nice and all, but you still need to be able to transport a whole family and with luggage. So, as early as the late 40s, even before the 600 was released, the engineers at Fiat were thinking about offering a low-cost family variant. The Fiat 600's rear-engine architecture allows for all sorts of audacious designs. So, Fiat is going to imagine a kind of miniature minibus, without a hood at the front. There's no need since the engine is at the back, prioritizing above all the interior space, and which will take the name of multi-platform. You don't need to look at the beast for long to realize that the car is a minivan ahead of its time, or at least a mono-volume. And besides, the Fiat 600 Multipla is only 3.53 meters long and 1.45 meters wide. That is 20 centimeters shorter in length and 15 centimeters narrower in width than a Dacia Spring. The requirements are simple in its most spacious version. The 600 multipurpose must be able to accommodate 6 people, while keeping a maximum of mechanical parts in common with the 600, especially its small engine, which at its presentation at the Brussels Salon in 1956 and for its launch remains the same. A 4-cylinder of 633 km, 3 and developing 21 horsepower despite the scoring of a good point. And in addition to its mono-volume look that makes it the first multi-purpose vehicle in history, it also prefigures what will be the strategic advantage of the Renault Espace, the modularity. The 600 Multipla comes in various versions, including 4-seater, 5-seater, 6-seater, and taxi configurations. And for each of these versions, the seats are foldable and can make a bench, except for the taxi, which only has a front seat with space for suitcases. And for those who opt for the 6 seats, the 2 rows of benches, in addition to the front seats, offer space for passengers, but none for luggage. So you will have to keep them on your lap. And from its launch, despite limited performance with 90 kilometers per hour at peak, but it's always better than on foot, by cart, or by moped, especially at 6. And its strange design, the Multipla manages to meet its audience regardless. In fact, one might think that due to the design of the 600 Multipla, its 110 is not good. Well, you should know it's much better than that of a Renault 4. Anyway, at that time, Italy needed cheap cars that could get the job done. Plus, it's locally produced. Indeed, in 1957, the European Economic Community exists, but tariffs are still in place as well. And the 600 Multipla is an excellent addition to the range for a relatively low development cost. The 600 Multipla appeals to both families and taxis. In 1960, it will receive a major evolution, as by becoming 600-500 Multipla, it recovers a 767 cubic centimeters of 29 horses to hit peaks at 105 kilometers per hour. But all for a reasonable consumption of 6.7 liters per 100. It is produced until 1965, and it will find more than 140,000 customers, particularly in Italy. And there were also several concepts based on it, including the 1000 Aranella version by Carrozzeria Fisore, or in 1956 when Pininfarina created the Eden Rock, while the same year the 600-1000 Coriasco, a utility version, was presented. In 1964, it's the turn of the Fiat 600T, a new utility vehicle based on the 600 Multipla to hit the market. And it will later give birth to the 850 Familiare, larger and more minibus-like. So now there's always this ultimate debate. We know that it was neither Renault nor Chrysler who invented the minivan. But then, was it Fiat or Volkswagen who invented the minivan? Because indeed, some believe that it's the Combi, the very first minivan in history. But unlike an Espace, a Voyager, or a 600 Multipla, the Combi was initially designed to be a utility vehicle. And in 1947, a certain Ben Pon, a Dutch importer, quickly realized that such a small outer dimension and such spaciousness inside would allow 8 people to be crammed in without too much trouble. And that would be a good idea. And this idea reaches the ears of the boss of Volkswagen, who gives his approval for production in 1949. So some would say that Fiat, after all, has invented nothing. But others will know that it was Alfa who invented the minivan. And even that it was in 1913 with the 4060 HP Aerodynamica. Interestingly enough, Alfa has presented a number of minivan concepts, but has never marketed any. And we can even say that the very famous Multipla from the 90s directly descends from another Alfa Romeo minivan concept. Indeed, in 1982, the Alfa Romeo Capsula, a concept car signed by Ital Design, was presented. And in terms of automotive design, there have always been connections between designers and architects. And there's always this obsession with optimizing the total length-useful length ratio. In architecture, we build vertically by stacking floors, and in automotive, we therefore pretend to do the same thing. For the Capsula, the base is therefore the platform of the brand new Alfa 33, which is about to be released at this time. On the ground floor, we therefore find the technical dependencies, the flat 4-cylinder engine and its transmission, the running gear, the tank, the exhaust. And on the first floor, we find the cockpit, the living area, and the Fiat Multipla displays the same visual break between two supposedly different levels, although in reality its construction remains very conventional. Only the Mercedes Class A has really applied this construction, but the Germans seem to focus more on food than on architecture. Mercedes discussed sandwich construction with us. The capsule is based on the Future 33 platform with a flat boxer 4-cylinder engine, 1.5 quarts and 104 horsepower. If this car inaugurates the word modular, it's not so much for its interior layout capabilities, but for the industrial ease and extrapolating infinite different versions from it. Monospace, then, even if anachronistic, refers to beach car, ambulance, van, tow truck, school transport, etc. In short, in all cases, the Multipla of the 90s was indeed inspired by the Capsula and is indeed the worthy heir of the 600 Multipla. It was just as revolutionary for its exuberant style and its 6 seats and 2 rows of 3 seats. And to all those who mock this magnificent youngtimer that is the Multipla of the 90s, beware, because the 600 Multipla is not especially beautiful either. But today it is worth about 35,000 euros. So from there to say that the Multipla of the 90s will be worth 35,000 euros one day, it's not a big leap. Anyway, let me know in the comments, do you think the Multipla will ever be worth that much? Subtitle 501.